Gamebreaker TV.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Monty's Minute for October 16th, 2012, the show where you've got questions, he's got answers. Of course, joining me, as always, Mr. Monty Sharma. How are you, sir?
I'm fabulous, Gary. How you doing?
Awesome. And I want to tell you guys before you forget, if you guys want to send in a question for Monty, of course, talk about the video game insider, the business insider stuff, trying to get the inside track here on anything from free to play to console cycles to developing things, programming, whatever you got, you can throw them at Monty. Send them over to Monty at Gamebreaker.tv. Send your questions to Monty at Gamebreaker.tv. Hey, you have an update. We had a question, I think, a few episodes ago about Ouya. You had something going on with that?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. I mean, we were asked what we thought, how Ouya would do, and I said, my view is it's not going to make it. Hardware is a tough business, and getting developers onto it and all of that is going to be hard. They don't have nearly enough money to do it. But, it was interesting as I was moderating a panel this week at MIT Enterprise Forum, and we got asked the same question. And so, I said my bit, but we had in the audience Michael Dornbrook, who was former COO for Harmonix, so the makers of Rock Band, and he said, look, let me tell you that the part about hardware that hurts is for Activision, initially you're making a ton of money on Rock Band, you rack up a whole bunch of hardware in the channel, and then demand drops off. Well, when something's sitting on the store shelf at Best Buy or it's in the warehouse, it's actually not owned by Best Buy. It's owned by the manufacturer. And if Best Buy can't sell it, and, they would have had to make a promise to Best Buy that you're going to make at least this much money from this product. So we want you to put it on the end cap. We want it to be, top shelf. We want hangers, all that sort of stuff. And when that fails to happen, all that stuff gets shipped back to Activision, and then they've got to destroy, millions and millions of dollars of inventory and write that off their books. So for all the money that they made in Rock Band in the early days, they lost it on holding inventory at the end, and that part's brutal. So, when you look at a new console, you really got to look at who's going to make really compelling content for it. How are they going to be able to afford to put stuff into channel? I mean, the reason Microsoft could get Xbox out there is they were willing to lose billions of dollars to put it out there. So, Ouya is an awesome concept. As a geek, as a developer, I wish them the best. As a business person, it's going to be a tough haul. And hopefully, in a couple of years, somebody will call me an idiot for misjudging them, but I think it's going to be tough.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Ouya. I can't wait to see. The next year is going to be interesting for them. All right, let's get to some questions. First up this week from B Barricade says, I know it's popular to hate on Blizzard, but literally game-breaking errors are not acceptable in products we are paying for. Why should Blizzard, or anybody for that matter, get a free pass for delivering a broken product? Always online is Blizzard's strategy for Diablo 3. So Blizzard is ultimately responsible when that system fails.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any question about it. So, I think that I don't think Blizzard should get a free ride. I don't think they did get a free ride. I look at it this way is as soon as the error happened, they knew what happened. They knew why it happened. And there were people screaming all over Irvine, from CEO on down, to what's going on? How do can we rack more hardware? Can we do this? Can we do that? What is it we can do to fix this problem and make it go away? As players, you got to look at it from the perspective of, look, when something like this happens, we can complain, we register our complaints, but I play games to enjoy myself, and I don't need to sweat, the company that much. Is I know they'll fix it, and next time it'll be better. We don't see any of the problems we used to see technically, and we just got to keep looking forward and saying that, yep, somebody will get slapped upside the head for it, and the next time they do it, it'll be much better. Most people don't even remember the early days of Steam. You remember when Half-Life 2 came out, when they were launching Steam, and everybody was just apoplectic about it. That, what a horrible thing to do. They shouldn't have done this. And now Steam, you couldn't pry it out of my cold, dead hands if you wanted to.
Right.
So,
I just think it's really hard for end users to because it's like Oz, it's like the man behind the curtain. They don't really. They don't have a window into seeing what's going on at Blizzard when that stuff goes down. They sort of, a lot of gamers just have this feeling of like, well, they should have caught this, or they would have known this was going to happen or something. And like you said, I think the reality of it is it's a completely different scenario than most gamers would think. And there's people just screaming, heads are going to roll, and people are freaking out. Like, they take this stuff really seriously. It's just, there's just too many unknown factors when they do something like this in launch.
Exactly. I mean, we had, we were set up, and I'm sure all of these guys are set up the same way, is as soon as there's a glitch that involves either a noticeable number of people or is longer than 15 minutes long, it gets escalated up to the next level of management. For anything serious, it hits the CEO. And so the CEO knows how important it is. He knows that the media is going to pick it up and everybody's going to be all over it. And, it's going to be pushing all the way down the chain to get it fixed as fast as possible. And next time, they're going to be making sure that problem doesn't happen again, which isn't to say there won't be another problem.
Right. And I think we've seen that. I mean, remember the old days of MMO launches were just disasters. I mean, people now, MMOs launch and, people go like, oh, so I won't expect to get in for an hour. I remember when I used to go up a hill, but I remember MMO launches, you didn't get in for like sometimes 2 or 3 days. Like there is, back in old school days, it took days sometimes for them to figure out these issues. So,
well, you remember a patch would come out and I'd see it in the graphs where, it ramp users and then boom, it's down. And then it's up. No, it's down. And it, up, down, up, down. And it would take them days to stabilize a new patch. And so all of that stuff has gotten better. And, be assured that game developers are trying to make sure it gets even better.
They've been working their asses off for years to get you to play their game. It's kind of hard to remember this when you're just, it's midnight and you're hitting your F5 or trying to launch the game, but they do want you to play their game, believe me. All right, next up, this question is from /birdflu. Hopefully he doesn't have it. It says, my question is, how come we haven't seen an MMO game strictly focus on instance PvP? I think we have. I mean, World of Tanks is kind of just that, isn't it?
Yeah, World of Tanks is that. I don't think you're going to see a lot of just instance PvP games. And this shows up a number of times. Is somebody will try and make it. The problem is PvP requires a skilled player who gets it. And so how is that player going to be trained? So if they're not playing through a campaign or they don't have scenarios or something like that to work with, then they don't learn the stuff. So World of Tanks, we worked, Vivox worked with World of Tanks, so we were in the earliest of betas, and, members of my team would be saying, hey, this game's awesome, and I'd be looking and I go, okay, hey, I'll pop in and I'll try it some, and I'd roll in and I'd get smoked. And it's like, wait a minute, I haven't even figured out the basic controls and I'm a smoking heap. Next time, okay, got steering, boom, I'm dead. And so all of that is a little frustrating for new users. So I think what you're going to find for games is they keep extending, they'll always be driven towards a certain amount of single player just for that training educational purpose. And then the PvP ends up being, the end game scenario.
But do you think that we'll see more games that sort of tend to focus on smaller elements of what we've seen in the big AAA title MMOs? Like, you know, because I mean, an MMO is trying to create almost like I sort of think is probably one of the hardest games to ever make, because you're making a PvE game, a PvP game, you're the crafting, the socializing, like you're trying to put so many things into one. And I know there's a lot of talk with developers right now that are looking at games like World of Tanks and like that, and I've heard a lot of people saying that they think that that's almost the future of MMOs, and that they will start focusing on just smaller slivers of that. So like maybe we'll see like just a game based on rating and, you know, like a PvP and things like that. Do you think that we're going to see that?
We'll certainly see a lot of experimenting that way, where hey, so World of Tanks, you know, they're going to replicate it with planes and warships, and that's going to be awesome. And then, you know, I think we'll see role-playing games that start out and say, hey, look, you know, we're going to work the story, and then if we're getting the players into the role-playing game, we'll extend it out into some PvP stuff at the end. And then once that gets out, that's stable, you've got microtransactions, so you've got an ongoing revenue stream. You might add more and more things that start to happen in multiplayer environments. We need to find, you know, reasonable ways to do it, because what's happening with MMOs is they just get increasingly expensive to make and a greater risk every time you launch them. So you'll see slivers, you'll see experiments, and that's all good.
Next up, this question from Mike Hogan says, Dear Monty, I read an interesting article from the Guild Wars team a couple weeks ago showing that the in-game economy mirrored the real-world one. I was wondering, could we see a top 1% of the population holding the majority of the money? If this is the case, what could the Guild Wars team do to promote greater wealth distribution among players? Thanks, Mike Hogan.
Now, I'm not sure if he's asking that a little tongue-in-cheek or not, but the interesting thing is a couple of game companies, CCP and Valve, both have in-house economists, and I know you know, most of the others have somebody who is watching the economy. Now, there's a difference between the real world and in games. So, in the real world, you know, it's the rich get richer, because once you're rich, there's all sorts of great tax breaks, so capital gains are taxed less. When you do a startup, you actually pay the tax on your stocks when they're issued to you, and the company's worth almost nothing. And then when it goes public or gets bought, you get all the money tax-free, so all that growth is tax-free. So stuff like that, you know, hey, you want to make $1 million, you want to make $1 million? Yeah, start with 2. It always helps to have money. In games, it's slightly different. So in a game, what they do is they really map out the sources and sinks of in-game currency, both hard currency and soft currency, so stuff you buy with real cash in free-to-play games, as well as things you get in-game. So they're mapping all of those things out, and they're trying really hard to keep things balanced between, oh, if we make it easier to get currency, well, that's going to lead to inflation within the game. So everybody's going to be buying better armor, better weapons. So we either have to come out with another tier of weapons to make it harder, and all of that stuff channels through. I know CCP monitors it very closely. And you remember when Titans first came out? And the word was we might see one Titan, you know, every few years.
Yeah, sure.
Before they knew it, there's Titans all over the place.
People were blowing them up already, just making new ones there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, you know, so what did they do? They brought in a new tier of technology, did other things to soak up the currency that's out there. And so that's what game developers do.
All right, let's do one more. This one in from Eric Lintner. It says, I'm looking at games like World of Warcraft and The Secret World and wondering whether a cash shop really has a place in subscription-based games. I know it's a business and these companies need to earn profits, but I guess I'm really wondering what the box plus sub actually gets you these days and why pets or mounts or pretty shirts aren't included in that. I mean, these guys are already riding around on yachts made of diamonds. Aren't they worried that at some point customers are going to become resentful? And don't get me started on Darnell's aftermarket stereo and keyless entry on his Winged Guardian. Who can afford that? Thanks, guys. Loving the idea for this show, Eric Lindner. What do you think of that, though? Because that is something that's going on, especially like, you know, with games charging a monthly and trying to get money out of you on the micro level. It does feel a little bit like they're pinching pennies a little bit, and they're trying to bleed me a little bit sometimes.
It's one of those things that I don't think has a long life. I mean, you saw it with CCP. They came out with that monocle. I almost wore a monocle to a meeting with them, just for the hell of it. But I think it's a difficult thing to do. I don't think you're going to see it very often. You're either going to get DLC for extra money or less of that. But, for the most part, when they do it, they're getting people who say that, hey, we want it. We're willing to pay a little extra. Yes, I get these things in game, but I want something special. So, psychologically, with players, in game is real. I guess there's no other way to put it. And so just like you see in the real world, look, I dress maybe a little better than Bill Belichick, but beyond that, I don't, as long as my genitals are covered, I'm legally dressed. I don't care what I'm wearing. But there's people out there, guys like you who are styling, who are going to go out and spend, maybe $20 on a shirt. And that's, that's wild. That's great. More power to you. I hope to God my wife never watches about it. But, that's really what it comes down to is there are people out there who want it. I don't think in the box plus world you'll ever see anything that really affects the game available for cash. I think that would be a bad thing. And it's for the people who have more money. We would find, what we do? We had put voice fonts in Second Life. And, something that changed your voice. And people bought all of them. And we'd look at this, well, why did they buy all of them? Because some of them just sucked. But no, they bought all of them. And I know, because, I worked with the designers. For a particular voice, some of them would just suck. It wouldn't work. Others would be good with that voice. And there was a whole mechanism to try them. Why did they buy them all? Because people like to do stuff like that.
They just wanted the choice. So, they wanted the option. They wanted to as many things you could possibly give them. Monty Sharma, always a pleasure. Follow him on the Twitter at Monster27, MONTSTER 27. Another great show. Great insight, my friend. Always good to see you. You can follow me on Twitter as well at Gary Gannon and follow Gamebreaker TV at Gamebreaker TV. The show goes live on the site every single Tuesday. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Monty's coming for you. Monty, have a great week. See you next week.
Thanks, Gary. Talk to you later.